Do you think you would be happier if you didn't have any problems? This is an important question to ask ourselves because I think it gets to the root of, ironically, a lot of your problems. We want to escape our problems, but we also want to solve problems. And we also always need something to be working on because staying idle is simply against human nature. But we convince ourselves that once our current problems are fixed, then life gets better. Life finally becomes satisfying. And let me tell you, from someone who has solved a lot of their problems, it is partially true. You are going to generally enjoy life more on a daily basis, the more of your problems that you solve, at least the base problems. But from then on out, when you have the ability to essentially create your own problems that aren't tied to the very necessities of human life, that's when life starts to become really enjoyable. Not so much when you don't have any problems to solve. It's when more of the problems you're solving are voluntary rather than involuntary. So before I really understood myself and kind of what I want to do with my life, I had the perspective of all these problems are bad for me. And once I can solve them, then life is finally going to get to the point where I feel like I can just breathe and everything is fine. And so I created this vision of who I could become if I work really hard to solve these problems. And so that's what I did for many years. For many years, I worked on YouTube. I went through the process of trying to get better at video editing, trying to get better at understanding what actually makes a good YouTuber, what makes a video pop off, so that I could gain this status and these finances that would be enough for me to not have to, I don't want to say work for someone else, because I would probably be fine working for someone else. I don't think that's the issue. It's just that I would have enough agency over my life to be able to know that a lot of the stuff I do, although it's hard, it is my own doing. And so I set this tangible goal of, okay, I want to reach 10,000 subscribers by the end of this year. And this was in 2020. I said at the start of the year, I'm going to reach 10,000 subscribers by the end of this year. And that was a problem I had to solve. Like, how am I going to get there? And I went through a bunch of stuff during that year, had a really bad breakup, and the pandemic was happening. And I knew I had to completely transform myself and push through a lot of hardships and a lot of issues and problems in my life if I wanted to reach that goal. And so I kept learning. I kept going through these different processes of video editing, of fucking locking myself inside for hours and hours and not seeing friends that often. And these were all problems I kind of decided to solve on my own and to take on my own. And it did happen. It did eventually happen that year. I had a video pop off, the NoFap, cold showers, journaling for 90 days video. If you know, you know. And my main channel started growing, and from there it snowballed. And after that, there was a period where I was kind of like, there was no high anymore. There was no chase. And having nothing to chase was almost a problem in and of itself. I experienced these emotions, which were very low compared to the past, like, a week after I had reached that mark that kind of defined the pivotal moment in my career where I could start becoming a YouTuber and start making money off of this thing. And I was like, well, what's next, really? I don't really know what to do now. You know, I've solved the biggest problem, and I realized in that moment I just need more problems to solve, and I will continue enjoying life. I want to conquer larger things. And I guess this is the concept of the hedonic treadmill, where right now you currently have a baseline level of emotional fulfillment or satisfaction. And when something good happens, you go above that baseline for a little while, but you'll always return to that baseline. And if something bad happens, you'll go below that baseline for a little while, and then you'll return to that baseline. But based on how many problems you've solved in your life and how much you see tangible results from things that make life easier, like especially finances, shelter, and relationships. Those are like the main things in modern life and human life for many years. Then this baseline is going to shift up. And so, yes, I would say to some extent my baseline level of contentment was higher and it pushed up after this period. And because that basically became the new normal, was being at this baseline level of contentment that was higher than usual. It felt higher for a little while, but then it became the baseline. And I thought to myself, well, what now? What do I do? Well, I keep striving for more, I guess. And that's what I did. I've done this for years now on YouTube, and in terms of the gym, with the gym, I want to get bigger, stronger, faster, whatever. And that's a problem I need to solve. And so I decide to write down this problem I want to tackle. And I like to frame it that way, as a problem to solve instead of like a goal to complete, I guess. I don't know, that just personally works for me. And that's what I think all goals are anyway. They're problems to solve. And for a while, I did get bigger. But, I plateaued in fitness. I naturally reached like my biggest physique, honestly, before 2020. But there were ways for me to feel healthier on a daily basis. And that didn't really become a problem to solve until like early 2022. Because 2021, I was also just trying to solve the problem of being as financially stable and growing as quickly on YouTube as possible. I decided to focus on those problems first. And so I reflect on all these years from when I first started taking life seriously, basically being like, oh yeah, I can actually not be the person I was for the first 20 years of my life. Like I can actually change and shift my identity intentionally to start shaping reality to look more and feel more of what I wished it had felt like. When I realized that in my early 20s, over all those years after, I realized that I am happiest when I have some sort of problem to solve, when I have something I am striving towards. And so if you are wishing right now, like, if I didn't have these problems, like my life would be so much easier, and then I could finally do the things I want to do. I would be like, I'd be going out more and fucking traveling more and hanging out with friends more if I didn't have to work so much. Like, I'm willing to bet that once you get to the point in your life where you can start to do more of those things more easily, and you have the choice to now, like I have the choice to, because I could technically, like, I could choose to not upload this video. I could choose to stop uploading on YouTube for a year and I'd still be fine, probably. But I choose to sit down here and record this video and do something that requires a bit of discipline, at the very least, getting all this together and editing it. And especially on my main channel, writing those essays takes a while. I'm still choosing to do it because I know that humans actually do function best when they're just solving problems, and solving problems that they enjoy solving. So the key to your life feeling better, it is not how do I get rid of my problems necessarily. I bet, if you're someone like me, at least, this is what I found, that you're just going to want to reach a higher level and have a different problem to solve that is fun, and be in some sort of process of getting better at something. Now, there is a revolt against this kind of thinking, and I have even expressed some of my revolts regarding always feeling like you need to improve. I think that becomes an issue when you can't be satisfied with who you are as a person in this moment. When you don't have at least some level of self-acceptance, and your fuel for being disciplined and becoming better comes from hate and vitriol built up in you over the years from people who have doubted you and hated you and insulted you, I think that can get messy very quickly. Because once you reach the finish line, whatever you consider the finish line to be, which is like, once I get here, then I'll feel successful as a person, you're going to realize that, well, you still have these insecurities. You still feel like you need to improve or you're not good enough. Like you couldn't spend any time away from improving and from showing people that you're worth something. You could not sit with yourself and be happy if you are so engrossed in being fueled by hate. So that's when it becomes a problem. But at the same time, I have simply just found, and everything I do now comes from this place, that I am happiest when I'm solving problems. I am happiest when I am pushing myself to a certain limit that still allows me to sleep well and eat well and enjoy being with my wife and my friends. But at the same time, knowing I'm giving it my all in a certain thing to become better and solve this problem that I have, it is so much fun. I love building things through rules I set for myself, through restrictions I set on my life, and then decide these are the problems I'm going to solve. And I think that's what life is. It is a series of solving problems and replacing your older problems for better problems. Because once you get the money, maybe now you have to figure out taxes, and that's a problem you got to deal with. Maybe once you get a nice camera, you got to figure out how to use it. And it's a little more complex than that simple digital pocket camera. Like, these are objectively better problems to deal with, but they are problems nonetheless. And I think you would feel better knowing that you're never really going to reach a point where you're totally satisfied with life and you're satisfied with what you do. And I think if you did reach that point, you'd only feel it for a little while. And then you'd be like, well, what the hell do I do now? And my answer to that is hopefully you get away from the being fueled by hate and you decide to become your best version completely out of love and love for yourself, and knowing that these difficult things and this discipline and this hard work, you just simply do it because you know it brings out the best qualities and best version of you, and therefore you can make the greatest positive impact on other people's lives. And that becomes your fuel and your drive. And you stop doing this so much for yourself, you get involved with others more, and you think about bigger problems. You have the capacity to solve even bigger problems. How great is that? You have bigger problems to solve now. That's awesome. It is awesome when you think about it that way, when you think about life that way, instead of having some end point, some retirement point. Me personally, I don't think I'm ever going to fully retire from work and just sit on a beach somewhere and spend my days reading and lounging or playing video games. Like I don't think I'm wired for that, and I don't think most humans are wired for that if we really think about what fuels us and what keeps us alive. I mean, the speed at which you age once you retire, I feel like accelerates so much because you've decided, you've basically programmed your brain in that moment to say, okay, work's over here in this body. And therefore it matches your thoughts. Because to an extent, I know in law of attraction it's a little kind of BS the way people phrase it and propose it. But to an extent, I mean, obviously the thoughts you have about yourself and about life on a daily basis are going to affect the way your body and brain responds. So think about, what are the problems I want to solve for the rest of my life? And that question is going to evolve over the years. And I really recommend taking maybe every few months some time out of a day to journal and to make sure, like, is this still the problem I want to solve? Are these still the problems I want to solve? Or am I not enjoying this as much anymore? And think about other problems you can solve. and other difficulties you can push through and other voluntary pain and suffering you can take on, which then makes all the involuntary pain and suffering that's inevitable with life so much easier. And that's the last piece of wisdom to impart is the more, I mean, there's an upper limit, but in general, the more voluntary pain and suffering and difficulties and challenge you take on, the easier the inevitable involuntary pain and suffering and problems and challenges become. Life in this post-pandemic world is weird, and I've talked a lot about a bunch of lessons on my main channel, but I wanted a different way to describe those lessons and place them into a story, like a coherent story. And that's why I'm in the middle of writing a novel. I'm writing a fiction novel about a 21-year-old living in a post-pandemic world, that's our present world, who develops the ability to shift into a parallel reality because of a loss he goes through. He experiences this really bad trauma, and it splits his mind in two, essentially, and he develops the ability to shift into that parallel reality that he starts seeing. And it's going to be interesting. It's going to be a mix of self-improvement, philosophy, fantasy, sci-fi. So if you like those genres and you want to get away from just doom scrolling, you can get updates on that novel as I'm writing it. I'm hoping to have the first draft done by the end of this year, and the updates come on Substack, which is my newsletter. If you want to subscribe to that newsletter, the link is in the description. And if you want to talk to people about problems you have and staying accountable to solve those problems and enjoying the process of that, just having the right mindset to tackle issues in life, then you can join my Self-Mastery School, where we meet in a video call every weekend and we discuss topics like self-mastery, self-improvement, and how we can become more well-rounded people that actually enjoy their life on a day-to-day basis. So if you want to join that, link is in the description to that as well, and that is it.